What's up, Dragon Brood? Today, we're going to get into some elf action. Though, I will say this. I have to admit, when trying to put all these decks together for Kaldheim, one of the things I'm actually excited about is it's actually been fun to get to put together tribal decks. Like, I think we've been putting a bunch of stuff together just like do the best thing with the most ridiculous card. But now it's kind of like trying to find synergies between all the different cards that actually work. And we're getting to do it in a tribal situation. Now, how many of them are good? Who the heck knows? But a lot of them look fun as hell, and that's kind of the goal here. So don't forget, like this video, subscribe to the channel. That'll keep you updated every time I'm rolling these decks out for the next, what's today? Friday, Saturday. So another like 4 days, 5 days, we're gonna be rolling this deck list out. It'll make sure you get notified whenever that happens. But for now, let's go take a look at this Abzan Elves list. Or I'd have to say to start with, there's so much I enjoy about this list and so much I like that I hope ends up being good. I don't know how much of it will be, but I do like that it has all the pieces. Like, I can look at it and say, like, I understand how this deck can be good. And I think that's the thing when you're brewing right out of the deck, or right off the bat, one of the things you want to do when building a deck is to make sure that at least it all makes sense. You're not just jamming cards in there. You want to be able to explain a purpose and a reason for how different cards come together. More importantly, if cards can work together with 3-4 other cards in the deck, which you see a lot of that in this type of list. But anyway, let's get into it. We're going to go down the list, starting with Blood Chief's Thirst. We're playing 3 of these. This is just a good way to get rid of early creatures, obviously. And if you're playing in an environment where people are going to be trying to do tribal things, there's definitely going to be a lot of early creatures. The one thing we'll say is we would play more of these, but we do have a couple of removal cards, so we're not leaning on this too heavily. We are playing a full set of Wildwood Tracker. Wildwood Tracker is a 1/1 for 1, but it can attack or block when it attacks or blocks if you own another non-elf or non-human creature. It gets +1/+1, which, since all your things are elves, they're pretty much always going to be a 2/2 when it matters. So it wasn't a reason to not play that one. A 2/2 for 1 is pretty solid. Playing a full set of Jaspara Sentinel. I like this a lot because, one, it's a 1/2, it has reach. Additionally, it does let you tap something to get mana of any color, so it does smooth the mana out in this in case you don't get what you're looking for. We're playing 2 Tajuru Brightblade, and truthfully, I wanted to play more of this, but I just didn't have the room. And this is like the weakest of the 1-mana things we're playing, but it does have Death Touch, so it kind of plays the role of another removal card, especially if you're worried about, you know, maybe sitting back and slowing your opponent down on something like a Lovestruck Beast or something of that nature. We're playing a full set of the Elvish Warmaster. We're playing so many cheap elves that if this guy's out, you're definitely going to be getting more creatures. It does only happen for the first time each turn, but that's totally okay. I don't think it's a big deal. Triggers only once, but, you know, even if you get 2 of these, then you're getting to make more tokens, and we have ways to boost those tokens up. So yeah, I'm all about this card. It actually is really neat. If we somehow get to 7 mana, that's awesome, but I don't know how often that's going to happen. Then we're playing Skimfar Avenger. I think this is one that could potentially show up in non-elf decks, but I'm not totally sure. But it does definitely work in an elf deck. So obviously if our tokens die, we don't get anything for it, but this lets everything else that dies get you a card and you lose a life. Could be a little dangerous depending on how many of them die, but truthfully, it's worth it. I mean, getting to, say, attack, or maybe even just, I don't know, like just blocking can even create some extra card advantage for you, right? And the fact that you have some stuff with Death Touch, like there's a lot of things going on there that could actually just be really nice to generate another 3, 4, 5 cards while this card's on the field. If nothing else, you know, you just get in there, you force your opponent to block this first so they don't give you the extra cards. But if your creatures are pumped up, then it becomes a real problem for the opponent. We're playing 3 Rally the Ranks. One of the few things in the deck that need white mana, but it is worth it considering we're playing an elf deck. All our creatures are elves. So playing this means effectively everything's going to get +1/+1. You know, not much else to say about the card other than it's really good in here. Playing 2 Realm Walkers. I got to get used to some of these new names. 2/3 Changeling, counts as all creature types. In this deck, it's an elf. Really, nothing else that matters. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, which is good to have that extra information. And you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. Oh, you choose a type when it comes into play. So obviously we'll choose elf, and then we can play elves off the top of our library. The good part about this is look at how many cheap elves we have. We have, what is that, 10 things that cost 1? Another 8 that cost 2. So plenty of opportunity to be able to get creatures off the top of the library, just keep it going. I mean, you could even see situations where maybe you play a War Master and a Wildwood Tracker, get a counter, then you play another creature, right? So you ended up with 4 creatures off of just 3 mana, or whatever. So there's a lot of cool things, or 4 mana, I guess. They could do a bunch of fun things here, is what I'm saying. Lots of opportunity for stuff to happen. Then we're playing 2 Herald, King of Skimfar, or as I call him, just Herald. Because, why? It's so weird. It's such a basic name for an elf. Herald has Menace. Look at the top 5 cards when it comes into play. You can take an elf or warrior or a Tyvar card, put it into your hand. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can look at the top 5 and basically take your best card that you want in that scenario. It's cheap enough that maybe you can even cast what you just found, potentially. And it does have Menace. There's a lot of times this is going to be a 4 or 5 power creature punching through that your opponent's going to have to double block in some way to finally get it off the board. Then we're playing a couple copies of Mythos Under Troy. This is a card that really does a lot of work, right? If you want to get rid of something like, let's say, the Great Hinge, right? You don't have a lot of opportunities in this type of build. The only thing I would say, if we were playing a sideboard, I'd probably play the other Changeling, the 2 mana 1/3 that you can remove something from the yard and then kill an artifact or enchantment, because it still counts as an elf. But outside of that, like, this is kind of a catch-all, right? It'll let you kill a planeswalker. The only thing I would say is when you're playing is use this card very judiciously. If you can get away from just killing a creature with it, then I would wait. Against most deck, there's going to be an artifact or enchantment you want to kill that's just going to be more important. Except maybe, I don't know, a party deck. Then you just take out creatures. Canopy Tactician. We're playing the full 4. I've seen some other people's deck lists already where they're playing just a couple of these. But for my money, it's like, you know what? If we have ways to cast this slightly early with a Jaspar Sentinel, that's great. If we get it on turn 4, that's awesome. If we get it on turn 5 or 6, that's okay. It does tap for extra mana. Not that we can do a ton with the mana, but I will say, if you have those turns where you have a Tactician out, then you play a Realm Walker. I don't know why I'm getting that wrong. A Realm Walker, you can actually play a bunch of stuff off the top of your library, potentially. And they're all going to be +1/+1. So that's kind of cool, too. And it is a 3/3 creature. It's not small. So, yeah, definitely playing a full 4. Then we're playing 2 Herald Unites the Elves. This is good just because later game, it can let you get creatures out of your graveyard and back directly into play, which is a big deal. So let's say one of those Canopy Tacticians dies, comes back out of the graveyard, boom, now you have your stuff, another bonus again, and you're going to have extra mana next turn. It does put a +1/+1 counter on each elf you control, so that's another way to pump all your creatures, in addition to Rally the Ranks, in addition to Tactician, which is great. And then when elf you control attacks this turn, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So when you attack, you can basically shrink your opponent's blockers and hopefully finish the game off. Or just outright kill some creatures. But yeah, this is overall cool card. Not playing a ton because we're skimping on mana a little bit, so we don't want to have too many high mana cards. And then rounding out the deck list with a couple of Tyvar Kel. 4 mana Planeswalker lets you tap every elf for mana, which is awesome if you get that. But even just putting a +1/+1 on an elf and giving something Death Touch is nice. Produce a 1/1 elf is nice. It's just a creature factory. It can block for itself. And then if you do just get to the emblem, well, whenever you cast an elf, it gains haste and you draw 2 cards. So you almost just get into this crazy cycle if you have a bunch of extra mana. So yeah, really good card for this deck. And because you have Herald, the legendary creature, you can go search for it out of your top 5. And then if it ends up in your graveyard somehow, you can use Herald Unites the Elves to put it back into play. So lots of cards here. They're all kind of working with each other, which is kind of the way you want a good tribal deck to be. Now, looking at the lands, we're kind of a little bit all over the place. Playing some full set of each of the pathways, playing 5 forests, 1 into the triome, and 4 swamps. I will say, one of the things I looked at doing was possibly playing enough snow-covered lands, skimping on like 1 each of the pathways to possibly play the faceless, whatever, that lets you make a 4/3. But there's just so many things early. You want to be able to play multiple creatures. I didn't want to get caught up with colorless mana. So this is kind of where we're at, I think, on this. We have tribal decks, still look like a lot of fun. This deck's actually pretty interesting. I like the way it comes together. It does have a few rares in it, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to build. But if you do, you should be rewarded for it. It's able to come out of the gate quick. It should be able to hang with most of the other aggro decks. It has enough resilience that even if your opponent kills several creatures or just sweeps the board, you have stuff like Realm Walker that lets you play off the top of the library. You have Herald that lets you search to get another card. You've got the Herald Saga that lets you get stuff out of the graveyard. You got Tyberkel that makes creatures. So like, you have a pretty good amount of resilience built in, which is kind of nice. It's something a lot of tribal decks don't have. So it should be a lot of fun. But remember, like this video, hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I have these decks coming out, because we're going to be doing this for the next few days. Also, if there's something you want to see, a card maybe built around, or a concept, or a tribe, or whatever, let me know down in the comments, or even let me know what you think of this list, because we're just trying things in the early stages of the format here, and we're going to be playing a lot of decks during this season that are all over the place. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.